Hi there, my name is Jenny Balsimo. My strategic audit project is over Illinois Central College for the dental hygiene program. Next slide, please. So we'll begin the overview of the topics I will be discussing this evening in the list below. There's the current situation of the company, the corporate governance, the internal and external factors. The SWOT analysis will be covered, the strategies and the recommendations, and then lastly, the evaluation and control. Next slide, please. So we'll first start with the current situation of the company. ICC, Illinois Central College, has a mission statement, and the mission statement reads, "Through learning, minds change, and then we believe by changing minds, we can change the world." And the policies that they have, the college is actively involved in providing ways for the company, for the students, and to the employees to provide initiatives on the campus. And they are a member of the Illinois Green Economic Network. And there's a chain of command. Next slide, you go to the next slide for me, please. I'll kind of go over the chain of command that we have here. Starting up on the left-hand side, the board of directors, it consists of those 8 individuals under the president chart there. Those are elected positions. They are an unpaid position. They have 6-year terms. And then there's currently 1 member that's not listed on there. They have a student trustee that helps them out every year, and there's somebody different. 3 of the members whose the term is from 2017 to 2023. 2 of the members on that list there are from 2015 to 2021. And there are the 2 remaining members, they are from 2013 to 2019. So within the members, there is 1 chair and then 1 vice chair. And then if you go over to the right there, then you will also see the, hold on, I'm sorry, the remaining board members on there. And I'm having a hard time reading the slide. I'm sorry, because it's so little. Excuse me. And then below there, and then you have the deans on there, and then you have the program directors also listed on there. So at Illinois Central College, there's a list of the administrative roles, and then that is the list of the board members. Next slide, please. So then as we continue on, and then you have the external factors, there's the physical, the societal, and the task environments. So within the natural physical environment of the dental clinic, it's a newly built building within only 1 year. So they have a storm shelter that is like a walk-in tunnel that is very safe. Illinois is known for tornadoes, so they have a tunnel under kind of like a storm shelter where it is enough to house all the staff and the patients and the students if they need to. There are no water sources close to the building. The only thing they have to worry about is the heavy rainfall, which is not usually a problem. The new dental hygiene clinic also has huge windows, so the natural light can shine in during the day into the dental clinic with patients. The societal environment is school safety, with all of the school shootings, things like that we have to endure now. Different procedures have been in motion. The doors are locked. People can't just walk in. They have to be let in by faculty members. They do have police officers on the campus daily who are armed. And then lastly, the task environment. In Illinois, currently right now, there is 14 dental hygiene schools and only 2 dental schools. So there is quite a bit of competition throughout Illinois with dental hygiene. Next slide, please. And then now we're going to talk about the internal factors that this company goes through. There's the corporate structure, the corporate culture, and then the corporate resources. So the corporate structure within the college was actually established in 1961, and 4 years later, the dental hygiene program started, in 1971. So they actually offer 69 transferable programs, 84 into the associates in applied science, Illinois Central College is part of the American Dental Association, the Commission of Dental Accreditation, and then as a whole, college, they are associated with the Higher Learning Commission from the North Central Association of College and Schools. So the structure within the college is typical of a smaller community college. There's 4 campuses in the area, although the dental clinic is only at one campus where that's where the clinic is, where they must go. 24 students are admitted every year into the program, and then that's broken down into 4 high school, 14 post-high school in district, and 6 post-high school out of district. Corporate culture, the college is all about diversity. Staff members must be trained in diversity training videos, and they are expected to comply with the guidelines given. And then it breaks down into corporate resources. There's marketing, finance, research and development, operations, human resources, information technology. We'll just touch a little bit on each of those. The marketing department, they review any requests from the college, then they investigate it, and then they are the ones to make the final decision. And then with finance, a lot of financial aid is dealt with the finances. They bridge the gap between the cost of education with like the FAFSA, the free application for federal students, that kind of thing. Research and development, these committees research and plan developmental opportunities for students. Then the human resources department on the college website gives like a whole separate policy. No person shall be excluded from the consideration or denied employment because of discrimination. They're do not discriminate at all. The information technology, the last one there, is done with events to promote their college. Examples like they would do open houses, like the dental clinic just had open house that's going to promote their college. Next slide, please. Here's just an overview of the SWOT analysis, the strengths and the weaknesses, which is part of the internal factors, and then you have the opportunities and the threats, which is part of the external factors. And they're just kind of listed below there. The strengths, obviously, in the dental hygiene, they're smaller class sizes, like we kind of already talked about. They have, they can communicate and bond with the faculty members because they're there for 2 years. We talked about the convenience of the college, how there's 4 different campuses. So if you live closer to one of the campuses to do your general ed classes, it's very convenient. Some of the weaknesses that there are, a lot of understaffing of some of the full-time faculty. There's a lot of adjunct faculty, so that makes it difficult sometimes if they're not there all the time. Opportunities, there's always opportunities for growth. Sometimes job placement is difficult for the students after they get out. Opportunities always to have community outreach, to go to different places to talk about hygiene. Threats, we kind of touched on that too, also with like school safety, the multiple hygiene schools, and then limited full-time openings. Sometimes when students get out, there's so many graduates, it's difficult to find a job occasionally. Next slide, please. So let's kind of touch a little bit on strategies and recommendations. These will help achieve the select goals. The interview, I actually interviewed the program director that is head of the dental hygiene program, and she has suggested a recommendation or an alternative to have on the school's website, like a catchphrase. They have their own mission statement as a college, but the dental hygiene website doesn't necessarily have their own. So she thought it'd be a great recommendation to set up their own vision for the program, for like alter it. She thought it would have like more pride in the dental hygiene program, or if patients are looking for a place to come and get service, she thought they would feel important if they had like their own little special place that they could go and feel important. Next slide, please. So lastly, we're going to talk about the evaluation and control of the department here. So it's done through like the SWOT analysis. They have huddles, pre and post dental clinics that they have with the staff and the students. So there's constant communication between them. There's enough evidence from the research and the personal interview that I conducted to say that the college is established well, and it will continue to grow and be successful. Next slide, please. And next slide, please. And I want to thank you, and I can take any questions if you would like.
Hey, Jen, this is Sandy.
Yes.
Is this a 2-year or a 4-year college?
It is a 2-year.
A 2-year college, okay. And then you mentioned patients in the clinics. Is this how is this clinic run? Is it open to the public? How are the patients coming to these clinics?
It is open to the public. You can have your own patient pool if you would like, or they accept patients that are on the state help at no charge, and then it is a $20 fee for anybody that can come in there. They do not bill any dental insurance or anything like that, though.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Jennifer. This is Grant.
Hello.
Just a quick, one of the things that caught me was the physical environment. I mean, are there shootings? I mean, is it a lockdown? Is there guards on the door that you can't get in, can't get out, or?
You can walk into the initial door, but there is a security guy right there, and he is a policeman. He's there all the time, 24 hours a day. Even when the college is closed, there's still somebody there.
But there's not been a shooting there, or there has been, or?
This is a new facility, so there has not been, no.
Of course not. But also, then one of the weaknesses, the understaffing. Is there anything to take care of that understaffing, or the lack of, or?
I don't know, the college, they choose to hire more like adjunct faculty versus like full-time people. So they have like 12 adjunct faculty and like 3 full-time people. And I don't know if that's because of like the budget, that we're not aware of that though. So they don't really ever say. It's just, that's how they do it.
Right. But would you do any changes to that?
I personally would, because I've been a student before, and if you have an adjunct faculty member and you're in a 2-year program and you are dealing with that professor or whatever, and you don't see them for another week because they're not there, and let's say they're not checking their email or whatever, it's difficult to build a relationship with them, for one. And if they don't get back to you, that's another thing. If one of the instructors is there more frequently, it's easier to, get things done or whatever. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Jennifer, for a really great presentation. I think you caught a lot of the key points throughout the structure of your presentation that were required for the strategic audit. My question is a little bit more from like an administrative point of view. As you're working through the strategic audit, what was the most challenging piece of the assignment, would you say, to relate to your particular company?
Probably the corporate resources, like with the marketing and the finance and all that, because a lot of that, in my opinion, is kind of like behind the scenes, because like I talked to the program director who, deals with the students and everything like that, and she doesn't really deal with like she's a manager, but she doesn't deal with like kind of like the financing and all that. That's kind of like somebody else's responsibility. So when I was talking to her in our conversation, in our interview or whatever, a lot of that she was unclear of, so I had to like do a little bit additional research, and it was a little more challenging, I thought.
I agree. I ran into the same situation with mine, and I had to research with some other individuals within the company to gain more knowledge about the financial aspects of the business and as well as marketing. My thoughts for this particular assignment is it would be very helpful to have interviews from various people in the industry versus just a single individual, because it is hard for one individual to cover all aspects of the business. So, and then would you say that at this current time, I noticed that on your SWOT analysis, you discussed the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Do you think that the strengths kind of outweigh the others when you were looking through your overall analysis?
I would say so, probably, because I actually went to school there, like way back when, but I kind of agree with the strengths, like having the smaller class size, and you do build like a bond with your instructors because you're there so often in 2 years, you know, and they're passionate about what they do, so you do create a connection with them. So I think the strengths probably would outweigh the rest of it. Yes.
Okay. Great job. Well, thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Go ahead and pause this recording for a moment. Thank you for joining me this evening. My name is Melissa Smallwood. I'm going to provide you with an overview of the strategic audit that I have performed at AtriCure for the HCM 495 capstone course. I am currently a regulatory affairs professional at AtriCure and work directly with the FDA to gain clearance to market for AtriCure's medical devices. For this audit, I had the opportunity to interview the Fellow of Engineering, John Sherman, to help analyze AtriCure, and many of the points that are discussed here were further developed per his additional responses. I'm looking forward to using the information gathered through this audit to help positively impact my work at AtriCure. The agenda is structured based on this information that was provided throughout the course of HCM 495. I'll have the external environment, critique of my current situation at AtriCure, the corporate governance structure, analysis of strategic factors, strategic alternatives, implementation of the alternative strategy, evaluation and control, and then I have a reference to the slide. So, AtriCure is a medical device company that provides innovative solutions designed to decrease the global atrial fibrillation epidemic. Their Synergy ablation system is the first and only surgical device approved for the treatment of persistent and long-standing persistent forms of atrial fibrillation for patients undergoing certain open concomitant procedures. AtriCure's AtriClip device is the most widely sold device worldwide, indicated for the occlusion of the left atrial appendage. You can see some of the product lines that AtriCure currently develops and designs. The open ablation devices at the top there, the isolator synergy clamps that I mentioned, and then you can also see the AtriClip devices down at the bottom. So taking a look at AtriCure's external environment, some of the external factors that impact AtriCure the most include our customers, competitors, the government, and the economy. I weighed these factors based on their potential threat to AtriCure's overall success. Being that atrial fibrillation is one of the most commonly diagnosed sustained cardiac arrhythmias and affects more than 30 million people worldwide, and that's about a little over 5 million in the U.S. alone, it's estimated that AFib will double with each decade of an adult's life. As that population continues to trend upward and the overall worldwide population continues to age, there should be a continued need for AtriCure's medical devices to treat atrial fibrillation. However, customers can decrease based on government and economical factors. So this piece has been valued as the highest impact. If we don't have customers, there is no way AtriCure would exist. Then looking at AtriCure's top competitors, Companies such as Medtronic, Boston Sci, and American Medical System Holdings are a few of our competitors. We keep a close eye on the developments from each of these companies, as well as the changing landscape of other medical device companies to remain on top of the atrial fibrillation market for medical devices. They have been weighted as the second external threat to AtriCure and pose a threat through the development of their new products and treatment options. And then taking a look at the government and economy factors that impact AtriCure, taking a look specifically at healthcare reform, there were individualized taxes on medical devices that had been put into place back in 2012, and that can in turn threaten medical device companies' profits. And then the continued uncertainty of insurance coverage and reimbursement for high-cost medical procedures using these devices is definitely an external threat to AtriCure. FDA and the governing bodies around the world also impact AtriCure's ability to market products through their strict regulations and requirements for device approvals. AtriCure has formed great relationships with these governing bodies through excellent communication and submission activities. However, they are still playing a large role to be a natural external threat to AtriCure and other medical device companies. Therefore, they're valued at kind of a similar risk because it impacts all medical device companies worldwide. So taking a look at AtriCure's current situation, AtriCure's mission is to provide innovative technologies for the treatment of atrial fibrillation and related conditions. In the U.S., AtriCure sells products to medical centers through a direct sales force. And then in certain European markets, such as Germany, France, the U.K., sales are made directly to medical centers, with the remaining international sales made through distributors. Within the last 3 years, AtriCure has grown from 200 to over 500 employees and has stretched out to 5 worldwide locations. Although AtriCure is not currently profitable, shareholders are expecting to profit by 2018. So then taking a look at AtriCure's corporate governance structure, you can see an overview of each of the employees here, starting off at the top with our CEO, Mike Carroll, and then we're structured with vice presidents of finance, marketing and sales, and then legal, compliance, research and development, human resources, and then clinical and scientific affairs. Each of these individual departments have additional top-level management below them with teams that are sourced throughout. Hunger and Whelan defines corporate governance as the relationship among the board of directors, management, and shareholders in determining the direction and performance of the corporation. So as you can see, there is a hierarchy at AtriCure, and then in addition to the CEO, there is a board of directors that works with Mike Carroll, the CEO, to develop and determine strategies and then determine appropriate decisions. Now, taking a look at the analysis of strategic factors, you can see the strengths internally and externally trending in the leadership and quality at the top here. So when you're putting together this strategic factor chart, I looked at it from a SWOT analysis by indicating the strengths at the top, the weaknesses in the middle, the opportunities also in the middle, and then the threats down at the bottom. Each of these are weighed as based upon their relevance to the overall performance and plan for strategy going forward. So again, strengths are quality, culture, and leadership. Some of the weaknesses are having the adequate resource and staffing processes, and those are currently under development. Opportunities would be to gain marketing control through our distributors, and then a financial position, being that we're looking to become profitable by 2018. That's definitely an opportunity for AtriCure and can be met through different strategies. And then looking at threats, I identified the top 2 as competitors and government regulations. strategic alternatives, this part was a little bit interesting to review for me. Upon reviewing AtriCure's strategy, it's apparent that they have been growing at a very fast pace and working towards profitability. Using a new alternate strategy through lower costs has been recommended upon this analysis. So taking a look at what Hunger and Whelan define as lower cost or cost leadership, they state that it aims at the broad mass market and requires aggressive construction of efficient scale facilities, tight costs and overhead control, avoidance of marginal customer accounts, and minimalization in areas like R&D, service, sales force, and advertising. So with lowering the cost, then AtriCure could then lower its price for its consumers and then still make a satisfactory profit. Through this, the lower cost strategy will also increase quality and processes, which would overall help the company to have a better end result. And then I've also recommended that research and development and clinical continue their path towards innovation by looking at novel products and making sure that they're continuing to merge the market with these unique products in order to maintain their mission of providing innovative products to the marketplace. Okay, now taking a look at implementation of this alternate strategy. So AtriCure will have to carry this plan out to lower their costs and continue to provide unique products by utilizing a matrix structure. Top-level management will create a high-level strategy and form a subcommittee to monitor performance. Managers over each department will develop action plans to reduce the cost and increase the quality of their products, including updating their processes, budgets, and resources. Research and development and clinical will also work towards reducing their costs as much as possible. However, will still have plans structured to continue the development of their unique product lines. These plans will all be presented to top-level management and adjusted as necessary to meet the overall goal of profitability. Top-level management will host quarterly reviews of progress and monitor goals through the quality management system ongoing. And then taking a look at evaluation and control. Now that the new strategy is going to be implemented, the next step is to take a look to evaluate and make sure that performance is controlled. So Hunger and Whelan defines evaluation and control as the process by which corporate activities and performance results are monitored so that actual performance can be compared with desired performance. So AtriCure uses their quality system to define their goals, track progress, and evaluate their results in order to be able to develop corrective action strategies where needed or to continue with the current strategy. Each department has the ability to input their information through controlled settings with the opportunity to share with their cross-functional departments of the business. So AtriCure's system allows for the input of documentation in a very timely manner, a thorough review, and an e-signature process for the review. The information evaluation step is crucial to understanding performance and measuring the results of the business. These are two key items that shareholders will be looking at when determining whether or not the company has become profitable. So this good information system can actually help drive the success of AtriCure. And then these are my references, and I'm going to open the floor for questions if anyone has any.
Hi there. You did a really, really good job, by the way. Question, what strategies for more opportunities could be done within the SWOT analysis, do you think?
Strategies for more opportunities, as far as things they can do I'm sorry, I guess I don't understand your question. Can you elaborate that for me?
Well, just in the SWOT analysis, you said there could be more strategies for more opportunities. I didn't know if there was something in particular that you thought would be
So gaining market control in different countries through distributors, and I can move back to the tab here. Give me a second. Oh, I think I went too far. There it is. So gaining their market control through a tighter control with distributors. So currently, AtriCure is marketed in Europe, but there are additional countries that we can branch out to. So getting a greater control over that, and also working towards entering additional countries, is a great opportunity for AtriCure to expand their market. And then from a financial position, there's high debt right now, and that is caused by, I believe, multiple years of growth from AtriCure. So we have undertaken multiple clinical trials, expanded our company in research and development. So in these areas, a little bit of tightening may assist to prevent the higher debt and to keep the costs reduced. So we will do that through implementing additional quality structure processes and through those additional plans that I suggested through the strategy, the alternate strategy.
All right. Good job. Thank you.
Yeah, nice job. This is Grant. I was wondering about the percentages of you put government right alongside of competition. Is there not a ton of government competition, like rules and regulations that have to go by? I mean, as far as marketing, like Stark laws and things like that. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so with medical devices, the reason that I structured this at a lower impact to threat was because other companies, medical device companies, are also receiving a similar threat through the government in order to get their products to market. So, and to put it in a little bit more specifics, there are standards and regulations that are being put into place by, for instance, Europe. Europe has medical device regulations that every company has to reform to in a way in order to get their devices to market or cleared to market. So it is a threat to the company if you can't enter those markets, but I felt as though from an overall threat, all companies are facing that same threat. So it's up to your business to come up with a good strategy to get into the markets and make sure that those communication efforts to discuss with like the European Union, the FDA, those different regulations or standards up front so that they can be successful in getting their devices marketed. It depends on the classification of your device as well. So lower class devices, class 1s, class 2 devices don't always necessarily require government approval. So in those cases, some of these devices that the company has would be a lesser threat to have these additional government restrictions. So it's very dependent upon the product lines, and it's also dependent upon whether your company already has a good communication with these different agencies.
Yeah. Okay. Now I understand. You answered my second question on foreign affairs, if they have the same type of regulations, which kind of answered that for me. Thank you.
They're very different. Foreign affairs are different because they have, at this point, well, previous to a very recent change to the regulations, they were less stringent, and now they're starting to get a little bit more strict than FDA is from a U.S. perspective. There's like a document that's over 600 pages worth of a regulation that companies have to conform to now by 2020. And then it's also very different in China and Japan. All the markets are a little bit different as far as what they're requiring for testing and different ways of showing that your device is safe to market. So yeah, it's definitely a threat, but I feel as though everyone in the medical device company, is facing these challenges.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Melissa. Great job. This is Sandy. I'm curious. You had mentioned that AtriCure has not been profitable, and that hopes to, profit by 2018. Do you feel that this goal can be achieved through the strategic plan and just dropping the cost, or are there other factors that'll be taken into consideration to hit that goal of profitability by 2018?
Great question here, Sandra. So the company has been forward-looking on this for some time now. Starting in 2016, when they released their annual report, they had notified their shareholders the plan to become profitable by 2018. So there have been some things that they've worked on in the background, like improving some of the devices that they had, and actually strengthening their product lines by adding more options to the market. Those were a few of the things to increase sales that would help get to that profitability mark. But reducing costs and making sure that procedures are strengthened will definitely aid in getting to that overall final profit goal. It is like between a 3 to 5 year plan, I believe, that AtriCure originally started. They are just now starting to narrow down to reduce costs in order to meet that objective. So some of the ways that they are having to restructure things, they acquired 2 companies, for instance, in 2011 and 2012. Acquisitions that large can help put the company into a bit of a financial struggle. So increasing their sales, reducing their costs, and continuing to open their products up to different marketplaces will all be big impacts to moving forward to profitability. I think we're really close to it. It's just going to be kind of slowing down on the spending to get there.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, great. We'll move on with our next recording. I will go ahead and pause this for a moment.
Hi, everyone. This is Sandy Fermenti, and I'm going to be presenting the strategic audit for Pediatric Associates, Inc. Next slide. Pediatric Associates, Inc. Is an independent pediatric practice that was established back in 1960 by 4 physician owners and partners, and they still remain a private practice. In 2017, currently they have 20 owners and partners and 3 employed physicians, and as of this year, they are no longer going to be offering a partnership, so that will remain at 20 unless someone leaves. And they have 4 locations. The initial location was in Whitehall, Ohio, and they are the 3 remaining are in Hilliard, Pickerington, and Lewis Center. And this was a very unique opportunity for me because they just hired a COO. It's a brand new position for this company, and it's still a small organization. But what makes them so unique at this time in the healthcare environment is that they are independent, and most independent practices are now being acquired by bigger organizations. And this particular practice wants to stay independent, remain solvent. So they are building their government structure by hiring the COO, and then we'll go a little bit more into the executive council that they've developed as well. But in doing the SWOT analysis for this organization, some of their top strengths was that they have an excellent reputation and expertise in pediatrics. They also have a longevity for the organization. They're a very strong presence in the community, as well as very engaged. And they're very well connected in that over the past 15 years, all of their new physicians have been chief residents at Nationwide Children's Hospital, which is quite a feather in their cap. They do a lot of mentoring, and the residents do internships there as well. Some of their internal weaknesses are because it's been an organization that's been run by just the physicians. They have a poor proactive management structure at this time. Their mission statement objectives are kind of vague. Their policies and procedures are centered more around day-to-day processes versus more of a larger organizational standpoint. They have limited ancillary services. There's basically no marketing going on for them right now. They do have a web page, so the majority of their patients come by word of mouth. And this can be a weakness, but may also be a strength at some point in time. They do have the new executive council and the COO position. Some of the opportunities for them is to increase their panel size per physician, to expand other locations within Central Ohio. And then they've talked about adding ancillary services such as behavioral health, nutrition, and breastfeeding services, as well as occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech therapy. They'd like to add this on their own, but an opportunity would be to develop a joint venture with one of the major organizations in Columbus, which is Nationwide Children's Hospital. A major threat, external threat for the company is the Medicaid expansion. This has created quite a financial impact on this organization. Vaccine costs have skyrocketed and will continue to become more expensive. If they do not remain solvent as a company, then there's a very good chance they'll be acquired. And then the larger competitor in the area tends to hire away the nurses and MAs within their organization. Next slide. The corporate structure of Pediatric Associates has changed. Prior to 6 months ago, their governance structure pretty much was the COO, the CMO, and the CHRO, which is the Chief Executive Officer, Medical Officer, and Human Resource Officer. And they really were responsible for the decision making within the company. As of 6 months ago, they developed and formed an executive council, which is 4 physician partners, and you must be a partner in order to sit on the council. It is elective, an elected position, and it's 1 physician from each location. They are the voting members. And then there is the CEO, the Chief Medical Officer, and the Chief Operations Officer. If there happens to be a tie vote, then the tie vote goes to the COO to break. The CEO to break. And then they currently are meeting every other week, pretty much to get their feet on the ground. They're also focusing on physician compensation and the external factors that are impacting the corporation. From a strategic standpoint, that has been a very weak process for them. They're now looking at the opportunity, like I said, to strengthen their governance structure and look more externally to develop their strategic plan. And then the 3 Chief Executive Officer, the Chief Operations Officer, and the Chief Medical Officer now report to the Executive Council. And then the practice managers, which are 2, and the clinical and business managers report directly to the Chief Operations Officer. And then the staff of the 4 locations report up to their respective managers. Next slide. Next slide. In looking at the analysis of the strategic factors, this also was very interesting because there are a lot of factors going on in this organization and things that they have to focus in on as easy fixes and then long-term strategic planning. So adding ancillary departments is more of from a competitive standpoint, and expanding locations can be a very expensive endeavor. So we focused on increasing patient panel, and the commercial payer took pretty much a precedent, and also changes in reimbursement and regulations. So the Medicare expansion really affected the Whitehall location more than the others. The company and the physicians are very passionate about continuing to treat Medicaid patients. So they're looking at increasing patient panels from the other 3 locations to capture more of the commercial payers and offset the cost of the Medicaid population. So their focus right now then would be increasing patient panel and changing reimbursement. And vaccine costs, we have very little control over that other than making sure that they are part of a larger purchasing plan to get the best price from the manufacturers. The competition, again, that lays more with the ancillary departments and can be looked at as a joint venture potentially down the line. Next page. Strategic alternatives. When we look at the growth strategy, which is the expansion project, again, that's a very expensive endeavor, and that will span over a time of about 3 to 4 years. So they'll look at doing a market research and market survey to ensure that this is even a viable solution or a viable profitability standpoint, also from a consumer standpoint as well. The stability strategy would be the increase in patient panel by 1%. That will help this organization stay financially stable. Retrenchment strategy would be to totally relocate the Whitehall practice to an area that has a better payer mix and not so heavy on Medicaid. The competitive strategy, again, would be to add the ancillary services, which again is behavioral health, OT, PT, and speech therapy, and then nutrition and breastfeeding services. The cooperative strategy would be the joint venture for the ancillaries. They are looking at this as a viable solution to increasing, but also working together with other organizations to provide these services to their patients. The recommended strategy is focusing heavily on the increasing of the patient panel, because this is going to take very little to achieve this. The cost would be put into marketing. Again, there's a lot of deficit in the market area, but it would take nothing for them to promote themselves a little bit more within these communities and increase their patient panels. The only downside to that, though, are, especially with Medicaid, they're seeing more Medicaid, getting paid less, but working more. Morale, that tends to hit morale. So not convincing, but having everybody buy in on taking on just a little bit more patients to compensate, or sorry, to offset that cost could be not a difficult conversation, but one that definitely would take a little bit of data. You would need the data, and we'll look at that next. Next slide. So this is looking at implementing the patient panel. So currently, the physicians have a current panel. We'll just take one for example. Dr. Barnett, who currently has a patient panel of 1,210 patients. In order for him to increase by 1%, he would need to increase his patient panel in 2018 to 1,301, and that's just 4 patients. So the numbers aren't that high. It's just a matter of making sure that their scheduling template is templated correctly to see more patients and open it up for better access. This will also help to increase patient satisfaction because, as we all know, consumers are looking at convenience over continuity of care. They want to be able to get in when they want to get in. So this will help from that perspective as well. If you look at the commercial payers by location, the majority of them are anywhere between 70 to 75% commercial payer. So if you increase these right now in 2018 by 3%, Whitehall is the one that's the least, and they're at 45%. go down to the percentage of Medicaid by location in the far bottom right-hand corner, Hilliard has 31%, but again, Whitehall's at 55% of Medicaid. So they're open to as many Medicaid patients as possible. Pickerington, we would like to cap that off at 2%, where Lewis Center and Hilliard at 1%. And then the responsibility of implementing this really falls on the COO. The company has Greenway EHR system, which has a pretty robust reporting capability. So they'll be able to track not just patient panel, but commercial payers and financials from this perspective too. And it can get pretty granular down to the ICD-10 codes and CPT codes to find out where they're making a profit and where they're actually where it's actually costing them money. So the CEO would be responsible for reviewing these reports on on a weekly to a monthly basis, and then report back to the executive council bi-weekly. Marketing also plays a responsibility in this because they have to do the research and market survey, plus the advertising to increase awareness within the community, which will lead to an increase in patient panel. And the finance, obviously, we'll be looking at from a financial assessment to determine the viability of future projects as well. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. Evaluation and control. So we looked at the balance scorecard, and from a financial standpoint, again, want to increase performance, productivity, and profit margin, and this is to allow the company to remain solvent. The customer satisfaction, to increase patient access, to continue to provide Medicaid services, and we do this by expansion and also increase in the patient panel. Also, by adding ancillary services will help to increase customer satisfaction as well. Sort of provides them with a one-stop shopping type service as well. Internal processes, certainly want to improve policies and procedures and increase efficiencies. We're doing that, or they're doing this through the Executive Council and the COO, updating their policies and mission statement and objectives. And in 2018, Greenway, their EHR system plans to make a major update to their platform, which will also increase efficiencies. Organizational capacity. The organizational capacity is looking at the expansion project, also increasing patient panel, as well as increasing ancillary department services, either by themselves as a company or in conjunction with a joint venture with potentially Children's Hospital. Next slide.
Excellent job. My question, with growth, are the doctors going to go with PAs or NPs? Is that what their growth is looking like?
You know, that is not something they're looking at this time, though if they want to stay competitive and continue to see more patients, that is certainly an alternative. And I don't know if you know this, but there's still a lot of pushback from physicians in hiring advanced practice providers. So it takes a lot of education, and buy-in.
Right. And now, have they thought about with the opportunities of growth, and they're talking about PT and OT being in my profession, are they going to outsource that to give it a trial and then try to hire within, or are they going to try to do it themselves first? They initially
talked about doing it themselves, but you're correct. That still requires quite a bit of financing because they would have to hire additional healthcare professionals and space And that's why they're also looking at possibly not taking this on, solely, but doing it as a joint venture. And certainly with Children's Hospital, they have a lot of experience in that area, and it would be a win-win situation for both.
Right, and then with the Medicare decrease in what they're paying for those patients, as we all know, between Medicare and Medicaid, I mean, the Medicare, same treatment, a Medicare patient, you get X amount, and then Medicaid, you get Z amount, or whichever.
Exactly.
So what are they going to do? Are they going to try to, like for the Whitehall, where you have a strong presence of the Medicaid, are you trying to increase patient load that way to accommodate that, or are you going to cap it and then go with it from there?
Well, the expectation, or rather not the expectation, but the philosophy is, if because of the Medicaid and the increase in that population, they need to increase their commercial payers in order to offset the reimbursement from Medicaid. So it's a twofold thing. It's one, increase to compensate, because they feel very strongly about continuing to treat the Medicaid population. Now, whether that is a viable, viable opportunity, it's hard to say. But they're going to give it a try. So if you increase your patient panel, which would capture more of the commercial payers and better reimbursement, one, it'll increase your finances and help offset that Medicaid population.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Very good presentation.
Thanks, Sandra. Great presentation. I think you hit a lot of the great points from our assignment. I did have a few questions in regards to your strategic analysis, and I'm going to go back to the slide here for you. And maybe go back another step here to the SWOT analysis. From a weaknesses perspective, or maybe even an opportunity perspective, or maybe even a threat, how do you feel marketing plays a role in getting new patients in the door that maybe are not necessarily Medicaid patients, but commercial payers? Is it somehow defined here where marketing would play a point in this factor?
Absolutely. So especially for the expansion plan, well, let's talk about expanding increased patient and panel size. As I said before, they're doing no marketing. They have a wonderful website, and that's about it. So the majority of their patients come by word of mouth. So there's a lot of people that have no idea that pediatric associates are out there. So they're looking at increasing their marketing strategy to encompass maybe literature, just pamphlets that they can set, even in a primary care provider's office that doesn't provide pediatric services, but more from the expansion project. They will be completing a market research as well as a market survey. One, to look at area demographics. Also, what is the mean income of the neighborhood? Is there a large percentage of layoffs in that neighborhood, or within that demographic area? So that when they do expand, they're putting these locations in an area that they know will thrive. But also as far as the ancillary services as well, that's what helps with the market survey to determine if the other, the ancillary services, do they need to focus on those four or expand that? What's the community and the consumers looking for in that area? So it's marketing plays a key. I mean, honestly, I think that they are probably the number one key component in all of that, because without that information, they can't move forward.
Thank you. So have they talked about potentially doing some additional community outreach, like through events in the area, maybe even talks and discussions where they can explain what services they're offering, and maybe even getting a place on the Google Marketplace online where they can start blogging and doing things like that to bring patients in.
I can tell you that I don't know about the Google Marketplace. I think that's an excellent idea, and I certainly will share that. But they work hand in hand with community leaders. One in particular, they work with the fire department, who puts on, they'll put on activities as well as, and forgive me because I can't remember what it's called, where the fire department, they have a little house and they have the kids go through it. And so the Pediatric Associates also is part of that program. So they do work with them, and which is an excellent opportunity because every elementary school student has to go through this program. So that's a huge exposure for them as well.
Thank you. And then I had one more question for you in regards to the reporting that I think you said it was the COO or maybe CFO that reviews the potential coding and things that are appropriate within the system. Has there been any plans for rolling out training to make sure that the staff is appropriately coding visits for their reporting purposes?
I don't think at this time there is. There is a billing manager that reports to the COO that looks at all of the billing. And again, I'm not sure exactly to what degree they're actually auditing the charts, but that certainly would be a great opportunity. The COO of the company has been in place probably about 2 to 3 months. And I thought that this would be an excellent opportunity, one, to do this audit with him, kind of to speed up the process in regards to some of the things that he might not have been able to touch. And it was a great learning opportunity for both of us. And I think as the short period of time that he's been there, he's done an amazing job in identifying some key areas for improvement.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Sandra, I do have a question. You had mentioned in this company, in this practice, that they wanted to remain independent.
Yeah.
What is the reason behind that?
Well, there are a multitude of reasons. One, they develop their own policies and procedures and strategies and objectives. They control their salaries. They value their autonomy. It's very different when you are acquired by a larger organization. And I speak from experience because I used to work with acquisitions. And you see the difference between being independent and working with an organization. And it's very, very different. And you do lose your autonomy and your authority. And so for them to stay independent, I think that it's a tradition for them as well, in keeping the company together. And I think that's the last thing they want, is to be acquired. They want to continue to stay independent.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.